Welcome to Live Daf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf, which is Eruvin, Daf Mem Zayin. We have 4 lines from the top of the Amud. And the Gemara presented for us a formula in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, how we're meant to conclude a psak halacha when we encounter a machlokes. So if the machlokes is between Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Yehuda, we follow Rabbi Yossi. Between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir, we follow Rabbi Yehuda, etc. Rabbi Shasha disagrees. He says, we're not meant to adopt general formulas when it comes to deciding a psak halacha. Rather, we're meant to approach each machlokes independently and conclude based on the merits of their arguments. We're not meant to apply general formulas. Says the Gemara, how does Rabbi Shasha know that this formula is incorrect? Says the Gemara 4 lines from the top, Ella Mahadasnan. Rather, it was from the following Mishnah that he proved this point. If one left his home, and he went to spend Shabbos in a different town. So he lived in a home which was situated as part of a courtyard arrangement, in which case they needed to establish an Erev Chatzeris to carry throughout the courtyard, but he left town for Shabbos. The question is, does he need to be included in the Erev Chatzeris arrangement or not? Says the Mishnah, Echad Nachri, whether this fellow who left was a Nachri, Echad Yisrael or Yisrael, Oyser Levenei Chatzeris. He still affects Isser on the members of his Chatzer in his hometown, Divrei Reb Meir, because even though he's physically not present, they need to include him in the Erev Chatzeris arrangement. He has a home there, he has a dwelling, he has usage rights to that area, therefore he needs to be included in the arrangement. Rabbi Yehuda Eino Oyser. The fact that he's present, not here, allows them to discount him. They don't have to reckon with him when making their arrangement. Rabbi Yossi Omer, depends. Nachri Oyser. If this fellow is a guy, then unless they include him in the arrangement, he will make them asur. Yisrael ain't Oyser. But by Yisrael it doesn't work that way. Why? It's not the derech, not common for Yisrael to resurface on Shabbos. Once he left town, you can be rest assured that he's not going to come back on Shabbos. And therefore, there's no need to include him in the arrangement. In contrast with a Nachri, who might suddenly resurface on Shabbos itself, therefore, he must be included in the arrangement. Rabbi Shimon Omer, not only if the Yisrael left town, could you discount him, even if he's still in this town. Afilu hiniachas beisei. V'holach lishbois eitzel bitoy, ba'oisoi ir. Even if this fellow left his home and he went to spend Shabbos at his daughter's home in that town, Eino Oyser, he no longer makes them asur. They don't have to include him. Shekvar hisiach date, because he was really masiach das. He diverted his attention from his home. He's not coming back during the Shabbos, and therefore he doesn't need to be included. And this is in contrast to Rabbi Yehuda said that if Yisrael leaves town, only if he left the town, then he doesn't need to be included. But if he's still in this town, then he must be included in the Erev. So how do we conclude? V'amar Rav Chama bar Guria, Amar Rav. So he said the name of Rav, Halach Rav Shimon. We follow Rav Shimon's shita. This fellow left his home. Even if he's still in town, he doesn't need to be included in the Erev Chatzeris. Uman Polagale says, well, let's analyze. Who is the opposing view here? Rabbi Yehuda, right? And we concluded that Lacha follows Rav Shimon. This seems to be inconsistent with our formula. For Amrit, haven't you said, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, when there's a machlokes between those two, halacha Rabbi Yehuda, and here we say halacha Rabbi Shimon. So this seems to be the raya of Rabbi Shashya. Now, when to rely on those formulas? It says, oh my kushya, what's the problem? Dilma hachanami, perhaps here as well, heicha de itme itmar. Perhaps here as well, meaning same teretz we had on the previous Kash, on the previous Gemara, going to apply that same thing here. When there's an exception, there's an exception. Heichad itmar itmar. When it was learned, fine, so we learned, meaning, when Rav tells us, over here we follow Rav Shimon, fine, it's an exception. Heichad la itmar, but when there was no clear-cut, explicit conclusion, la itmar, then we don't have a conclusion, and went to adopt those formulas. So generally, you're right. The halacha follows Rabbi Yehuda over Rav Shimon. But here's an exception. Ella mahadasnan. Rather, Rabbi Shashir had a raya to negate those formulas from the following Mishnah. V'zeu she'amru ha'oni ma'ar v'raglav. So the Mishnah is describing a person who's on the road. He'd like to establish an Erev Tchumen, doesn't have access to food. Says the Mishnah, this is an example of an ani, a poor person, meaning a person who doesn't have access to food at the current moment. He can make an Erev B'Raglov, using his feet, meaning by his mere physical presence at the Erev site, that is enough to establish the Erev Chatzir, the Erev Tchumen. Rab Meir Omer, Anu ein lanu ela ani. We only apply this halacha by an ani. He doesn't have access to food. So we allow him to establish the Erev Tchumen even without food, but preferably we want to use food for the Erev Tchumen. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, just the opposite. Echad ani v'echad asher. Whether this person has no access to food or he's an usher, has access to food, he can go ahead and opt to establish his Erev Tchumen using his physical presence. Because according to Rabbi Yehuda, physical presence is actually superior to merely placing food at the Erev site. Like Amru Ma'avrim B'Pas, the only reason why the Chachamim allowed one to use pas, it was only meant to make it easy for the usher. So it shouldn't be necessary for him to have to actually physically go out to the Erev site. So they allowed him to use bread. He could send it out using a shliach. It's a leniency. Physical presence at the site is actually better than food placement. So, what is the psak halacha? Right, we have machlekes. Rabbi Yehuda says anybody can establish an erev using his physical presence. Whereas Rabbi Meir says it was a special allowance for a person who doesn't have access to food, but otherwise you want to use food. Umasile Rav Chia bar Ashi. So Rav Chia bar Ashi taught L'Chia bar Rav, Chia the son of Rav, Kamei de Rav. So he taught Chia in front of Rav as follows: Echad ani ve'echad asher. Whether the person is an ani or an asher, he can choose to establish the Erev Tchumen using his physical presence. In accordance with Shitas, Rabbi Yehuda. Va'amali Rav. And Rav responded to him, Sayi banami. You should also conclude in the wording of your Mishnah, Halach Rabbi Yehuda. Meaning establish it as part of your learning, as part of the nusach of the Mishnah here. So the question here is, why did Rav find it necessary to actually state Halach Rabbi Yehuda so explicitly? We already know that. Tarati Lamli, why do you have to add this second statement? Meaning, we already have it established as a formula. For Amris, haven't you said, Ramei Rabbi Yehuda? When there's a machlekes between these two, Halach Rabbi Yehuda. So we want to follow Rabbi Yehuda. Why was it so important to state it explicitly here? It's been established as an accepted formula. So perhaps this is the raya, how that formula is unreliable. Says the my kusha. What's the problem? Dilma Rav Leslie Lani Kloli. Perhaps you're right. Rav himself doesn't hold of these formulas. Okay, he doesn't agree with it. You have a right to that. But the formula was stated in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. So Rabbi Yechanan holds meant to apply those formulas. How did Rishashi know that those formulas were falsely attributed to Rabbi Yechanan? Perhaps Rav disagrees. However, Rabbi Yechanan maintains that those are correct formulas. Ella rather mahadisnan, we have a right from the following Mishnah. Hayavama leisachleitz leisesabim. Ad sheyu lo shleisha chadashim. So Yavama, whose husband died without children, she used to wait. She used to undergo a 3-month wait period before she performs chalitza, before she gets yibum. These 3 months will determine for us whether or not she's expecting. Because if the isha is muberes, then the chalitza is invalid. Then certainly the yibum is not meant to be done, because if she's expecting from her husband who died, she's not meant to marry her husband's brother. It's an erva, it's an avera. So she's meant to wait, so they can determine whether or not she requires chalitza or yibum. Says the Mishnah, the same thing applies for any woman who decides to remarry. She needs to undergo that 3-month wait period to determine whether she's expecting. V'chein sharkal anashim, the same thing regarding all other women. Lo yinasu, they shouldn't remarry. V'lo yisarsu, they shouldn't even get engaged. Ad shiyu lahen shloisha chadashim, until they wait 3 months, which will determine for us whether she's expecting. Meaning, because if she remarries immediately, perhaps in 7 months' time she'll give birth. and we won't be able to really determine whether it's the second man's child or perhaps the first man's child. Therefore, she meant to wait 3 months so we could ascertain that she's not muberes. Says the Mishnah that this halacha will apply in all cases. It's a blanket halacha, whether or not there is really a practical concern that we just mentioned. Because we're not meant to differentiate, which can lead to confusion, and therefore the Chachamim issued a blanket statement, blanket gzera. In all cases of remarriage, you're meant to wait 3 months. Echad besulos, whether this woman is a psula, so we know there's no chance of a child having been produced through the first marriage. She never had a relation with him. Echad beulos, in which case there is a concern. Echad almonos, whether she's a widow. Echad grushes, or she's divorced. Echad aruses, whether she was only engaged to the first husband, in which case there's no concern of a child. Echad nasuis, whether she was married. In all these cases, whether or not there's a practical concern, there's a 3-month waiting period required. The one soon will tell us she's Rav Meir, who issued a blanket statement, a blanket gzera. Now, actually, the word arusa, we call it engaged, but it's not like today's engagement. Arusa in those days meant actually a kinyan kedushin. So in any case, in all situations, there's a requirement to wait 3 months. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, he takes a more practical approach. Nesuis is arsu. If this woman was previously married, then she can go and get engaged, because Eruvin doesn't produce a child, so there's no concern. Va'aruses, likewise, if she was previously only engaged, in which case there's no concern about a child from the first husband, nasu. So those women can go ahead and get married. So Yehuda adopts a practical approach to things. Except for this case, chutz ma'arusa should be Yehuda, except for a woman who was engaged in the place of Yehuda in Eretz Yisrael, where there is a concern perhaps of a child having been produced from the first husband, and they shall leave a gaspa because they developed a close relationship. Even during their engagement, perhaps there's a concern about a child. Rabbi Yossi Aimer, he agrees with Rabbi Yehuda in general terms, except for one exception. Kol ha'anashim yis'arsu, all women can go ahead and get engaged without waiting. Chutz min ha'almana, except for this widow, Pnei Ibul, because of mourning. She has to wait until the Avelis period is over. Okay, so we have machlekes between the Tanakama, who issues a wall-to-wall gzera without exception. All women need to undergo that shloisha chadashim waiting period, whether or not there's a practical concern. Rabbi Yehuda adopts a practical approach. Only where there's a practical concern is there a waiting period, otherwise not. And Rabbi Yossi basically agrees with Rabbi Yehuda. Says of Amrina, we said, Rabbi Lezer lo ya'alu be'medrasha. He didn't enter the Beis Medrash that day when they learned this halacha. Ashkechel Rav Asi davakam. So you encountered Rav Asi was standing. Amarle. So he asked him, "My Amar be'medrasha. What did they say in the Beis Medrash when I was absent?" Amarle, so he responded, "Hochem Rabbi Yochanan, halacha Rabbi Yossi." The halacha follows Rabbi Yossi that we adopt a practical approach when it comes to implementing this 3-month waiting period. Okay, says the Gemara, the fact that Rabbi Yochanan paskin like Rabbi Yossi, that indicates to us that there was only an individual who opposed him, rather than a majority view, because otherwise Rabbi Yochanan would not conclude like Rabbi Yossi. So is that so that there was only a yachid disagreeing with him? Says the Gemara, yes. It's actually Rabbi Meir, who is the Tanakama of that Mishnah, who disagrees with Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Meir adopts a general approach to things, and he applies a universal gzera in all situations. So he's the bar plukta, he's the man Omar, he's the individual who disagrees with Rabbi Yossi. V'atanya, as we learned in the Brisa, where we find that it's indeed Rabbi Meir's shita to apply a general isser here. The Brisa is going to list for us a number of cases where, practically speaking, there's no real concern of a child having been produced from the first marriage. Nevertheless, Rabbi Meir maintains we are meant to adopt this 3-month waiting period. Says the Brisa, we have a situation where the woman spent a lot of time back home in her parents' home, or she was in conflict with her husband, or her husband was elderly or ill, or she was sick, akara, a barren woman, skena, ketana, violinist, a woman who bears physical signs, which indicate that she's not suitable for childbearing, if she ain't related, or for some other reason, she can't have children, she took a medicine, etc. Or if a husband was locked in jail. Or a woman who had a miscarriage after her husband's death. In all these cases, there's no real practical concern of a child lingering from the first husband. In any case, all these women need to wait 3 months before they remarry the Rabbi Meir, who applies a universal gzera without differentiation in order to avoid any confusion. Rabbi Yossi matir la'ores nasam miyad. Rabbi Yossi adopts a more practical approach, and therefore he says in all these situations there's no real concern. They're allowed to immediately remarry, re-engage, remarry. Okay, so we have this halacha in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, halacha Rabbi Yossi. Says the Gemara, Lamali, why did Rabbi Yochanan see a need to tell us that we follow Rabbi Yossi? We have those formulas in the name of Rabbi Yochanan himself. For Amris, haven't you said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yossi, halacha Rabbi Yossi? We already know that when there's machlokes between these two, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi, who do we follow? Rabbi Yossi. So perhaps this is an indication that that formula was falsely attributed to Rabbi Yochanan. Otherwise, why would he himself have to go repeat this? Says the Gemara, my kushya. What's the problem? Perhaps the formula is precise and correct. However, the reason why Rabbi Yochanan saw a need to go ahead and tell us that in this case specifically we follow Rabbi Yossi, he was coming to oppose Rav Nachman Mashmo, the Amar, halacha k'Rabbi Gzeiraisiv. That when we find a gzeira, the name of Rabbi Meir, a chumrah, such as in this case, we want to follow Rabbi Meir. Therefore, Rabbi Yochanan saw a need to say, no, I disagree with that statement of Nachman Shmuel, even in this case. When we have a gzeira from Rabbi Meir, still we follow Rabbi Yossi. If that's the case, then everything can work. There was a formula in Rabbi Yochanan, which is a general formula. Still, he needed to stress to us that even in this case, we follow Rabbi Yossi's sheet. So what was the Rishash's raya that formula is not meant to be relied upon? Ella meha desanya. Rather, the raya is from the following price. The raya says, "Hoilchin liyirid shel nachrim." Who may approach this fair, this market of the nachrim, which was conducted on their holiday? V'loikchim mehen behema avodim shvachis. Who may purchase from them an animal, slaves, maidservants, batim sadisakramim, houses, fields and vineyards. Although the nachri might be inclined to go afterwards and thank his avodah zarah due to his success in business, who may proceed and purchase these things, and Rashi will explain why. The Kaisev, likewise, he can draft a purchase document, umala bar koshelan, and even bring it up to the judges for confirmation, although he's granting them honor and respect. Why is that allowed? Because he's merely trying to salvage it, he's trying to protect and secure his purchase. Let's see Rashi inside 4 lines from the bottom. So at the end of that 4th line, li yurid, says Rashi, shuk hanikba liyoim chag shloig dikachavim. This was a fair, a market which was established on their holiday. V'loikchin mehen batam asadais, who may purchase from them these properties, because he's actually weakening the power of the Oivdei Avodah Zarah. Inami mishum yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Additionally, if this is taking place in Eretz Yisrael, we have that additional element because he's inhabiting Eretz Yisrael. Behema avodim shvachos. What's the reason there? Because he's bringing them into the jurisdiction of Yisrael. Machnisim lekdusha. Rashi in the beginning of Bechira says, when Yisrael takes possession of the animal or the slaves, they're going to begin resting on Shabbos, they're going to do mitzvahs. So it's their advantage. Continues Rashi, Yumala Hashtar. So he drafts this document and actually brings it up to the Barka Shalen, Lefnei Dayanim, in front of their judges, Lachtaim, to sign. Although it's an honor for them, and this is a concern. Dilma Azli Umoidu. Perhaps, due to this honor that's being accorded to them, they're going to go thank the Avodah Zarah. Look, the Israelim are giving us honor. Even so, it's allowed. Why? Because he's merely trying to save his possessions, secure his purchase. He doesn't v'yi'arer al machira. So the guy doesn't come back and challenge the sale. So therefore, in order to secure his purchase, the Chacham allowed him to go approach the non-Jewish judges. Continues the Gemara, 5 lines in the bottom. If this person was a kohen, mitame b'chutz la'aretz, he can even go out of Eretz Yisrael to chutz la'aretz, where he will face a tumah d'Rabbanan, a tumah's Eretz Amim. Why is he doing this? Lodun ula'ariman, to go deal with them in their courts, to secure his possessions. Ukashem shemitame b'chutz la'aretz, just as we allow him to go out to chutz la'aretz to become tamei, kach mitame b'beis hakvaros. Likewise, for this purpose, he could even become tamei in a beis hakvaros. Beis hakvaros hakataitach. Can you entertain? And that will be allowed. It's a deraisa. It's a lav. Tumah deraisi. Ela beis hapras d'Rabbanan, who merely referring to a beis hapras, which was a field where a grave was overrun. So this field becomes tamei d'Rabbanan, and we would allow this kohen to enter that field to secure his financial interests. Umitame l'seisha. Likewise, he can become tamei in a tumah d'Rabbanan, for instance, going out to chutz la'aretz for the sake of finding a wife, v'lumei Torah, to find a Rebbe to learn Torah. Rabbi Yehuda, emasai. When is he allowed to go look for a Rebbe? Bizman she'ein moite lilmoid. He doesn't have a Rebbe available in Eretz Yisrael to learn from. Aval moite lilmoid. But if he finds somebody that can teach him in Eretz Yisrael, lo yitami, should not go out to chutz la'aretz to become tamei. Although perhaps he prefers a different Rebbe, we don't allow it. Rabbi Yossi, no. Af bizman she'moite lilmoid. Even in a case where he has somebody to teach him in Eretz Yisrael, nami yitami. He can even go out then to become tamei, to find somebody that speaks his language that he prefers. Lefi she'ein min hakoil zoich adam lilmoid. A person is not zoich to learn from everyone. He needs to find somebody that speaks his language, that can relate to him. Let's take a look at Rashi on the top line. Shloi min hakoil adam zoich lilmoid. Ein adam zoich lilmoid mikol malamlev. A person is not necessarily zoich to learn from everybody. Yesh Rab shemishnasei stor befiv. You have a Rebbe who's well versed in his learning and his teaching, v'shoinel talmid of derech tzara, and teaches in a concise, articulate form. So perhaps he needs somebody like that. Therefore, we allow him to leave Eretz Yisrael to find somebody to his liking. In the Sefer Minchas Bikurim, based on the Tosefta, he adds that teaching Rebbe and Talmidim, that's connected to the concept of neshamas and the shirish of neshamas. Hashem designates who's meant to learn from whom. It's connected to the connections of the neshamas. Therefore, a person can go ahead and find somebody who he feels is suitable for him. Perhaps he's meant to learn from him, and therefore we allow him to learn Eretz Yisrael even for that purpose. But Rabbi Yossi, I'll prove this to you. Masa b'Yosef HaKohen. There was a story with Yosef, who was a Kohen. Sheholach etzel Rabbi l'tzaidan l'umad Torah. He went out of Eretz Yisrael to the town of Tzidon to learn Torah from his Rabbi. So we see that one is allowed to leave Eretz Yisrael to go learn by a Rebbe of his choice. Okay, so this is a machlokes between Rabbi Yossi, who says even in this case he can leave, and Rabbi Yehuda says no. As long as there's somebody in Eretz Yisrael to learn from, he must remain there. So who do we follow? Rabbi Yechanan, halach Rabbi Yossi. We follow Rabbi Yossi. Lamali, why did Rabbi Yechanan see a need to go tell us? We follow Rabbi Yossi. We already have a formula that we can apply here. Va'amris, haven't you said, in the name of Rabbi Yechanan himself, Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yossi, we have a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi. Who do we follow? Halach Rabbi Yossi. So we know that already. Why did Rabbi Yechanan see a need to go repeat that again? So perhaps this is a raya that formula is unreliable. Amra Abaye, no. Both things are true. Itzrich, even though Rabbi Yechanan already presented us with that formula, but he needed to repeat that again here. Perhaps I can think, these formulas can only be applied to machlekes, which is contained in a Mishnah, which is deemed to be reliable and precise. In which case you know that the names in the Mishnah, which are attributed to the respective shitas, are the true names, thereby allowing you to apply this formula, which is essentially a name-based formula, to conclude your psak halach. Aval bebraisa emaloi. But a machlekes which is contained in a brisa is not deemed to be so reliable. There's a concern that perhaps the names got switched around, so you can't apply this name-based formula to conclude your halacha. Rather, you must evaluate each case independently, each machlokes, and conclude based on the merits of the shittas, of the arguments. You can't apply this formula. Kamashmalan. That's why Rabbi Yehuda need to add this statement pertaining to the machlokes between Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi Yehuda, which was actually contained in a brisa, that here as well we follow Rabbi Yosef's shita. So at this point, we don't really have a kasha, a reason to disregard those formulas, except for Rav, who is shown to disagree with those formulas. But otherwise, we don't really have a kasha. So why does Ramashashi say we're not meant to rely on those formulas? Says, well, you're right. It's exactly what he meant to say. Ella rather hachikamer. This is all he meant to say. Hani kloli, lav derakol ninu. These formulas are not agreed upon by all. The Harab, less hani kloli, because Rav disagrees with them. But otherwise, certainly, they're agreed upon by all. Continues the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mashmo. We learned that regarding a chevetz of hefker, we have a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and Nuri, who says a chevetz of hefker is koine shvisa, whereas the Rabbanan hold a chevetz of hefker is not koine shvisa. What about a chevetz of a nachri? A guy himself doesn't have shvisa. What about his possessions? Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mashmo, chevetz nachri, eine koine shvisa. There's no shvisa there, so one can just pick them up and take them to wherever he needs to go. They're not bound by their own boundary of 2,000 am in each direction. Laman, in accordance with whose shita by Hefker did Shmuel issue this statement? Elim the Rabbanan. Is it according to the Rabbanan who hold that Hefker doesn't have shvisa? And Shmuel is coming to add that likewise the possession of a goy doesn't have shvisa? Pshita, isn't that self-evident? It's obvious. Hashta chefte Hefker. The less lubalim ain't koine shvisa. Because if a chevetz of hefker, which has no owner to interfere with the process, still no, the Rabbanan say there's no shvisa. We don't say the object itself acquires shvisa by its own right. Chevetze hanachri, the islu balam mebaya. Do you need to tell me that a chevetz of a goy where there's an owner there interfering with the process? You need to tell me there's no shvisa there? It's obvious. There's no need for Shmuel to teach us this halach. Ella ali b'Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri. Apparently, he was issuing a statement according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri, who says that hefker is koine shvisa, ve'kamashmalan, and he came to teach us. Ei modam Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri koine shvisa. When the Rabbi Yehuda say there's shvisa, hane mili hefzer hefker. That's strictly to a chevetz of hefker. The less lo balam. There's no owner there to interfere with the process. Therefore, the chevetz itself acquires its own shvis. In contrast with a chevetz of a goy, the islu balam loy. Since there's a balam there, who's interfering with the process, because he himself doesn't have shvisa, so he interferes with the process. He doesn't allow his possessions to have shvisa. Loy. So over there, certainly, the possessions won't have shvisa. So Shmuel needs to teach us, even according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri, a chevetz of a nachri is different the chevetz of hefker. Let's take a look at Rashi inside, 11 lines from the top. Says Rashi, Ein koine shvisa. So this is Shmuel telling us that the possessions of a guy don't acquire shvisa. Now, what are the results of this halacha? Twofold. Number one, Varihin kiragle kol adam. Anybody has the ability to pick them up and transport them to where he can go. So if he has an Eruv which allows him to walk 4,000 amma to the east, he can take it along with him. It is not restricted and limited to its 2,000 amma radius. Number two, let's say they've arrived into the city on Shabbos from outside the Tchum. So generally something like that would be restricted to 4 amas. Here it's different. You can transport them in any direction because they don't have shvisa. So Gemara discusses this statement of Shmuel. According to who was he saying it? According to the Chacham, who hold that hefker doesn't have shvisa, then of course this doesn't either have shvisa. Explains Rashi. Hefker. Because certainly, if hefker, where there is a reason to believe that it would have shvisa, because one can say, liknu minav shayu, let it acquire shvisa by its own right. Still and all, Amri Rabbanan dein koin, Rabbanan maintain, no, hefker doesn't get shvisa. Then of course, something which belongs to a guy, this little balim, these things have an owner. Harihin Kamaisa. They have the same status as the owner. Ubalein less lu shvisa, and the owner does not have shvisa. They're not b'nei shvisa nino. They're not Yisraelim. They don't have the ability to have shvisa. Of course. Is there a need to even say this? That the Chavtzei Nachri don't have shvisa? Says the Gemara, okay. He was going according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri, and he came to teach us that, Hefker will have shvisa. But Chavtzei Nachri, even according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri, does not get shvisa. Says the Gemara, is that the case? Meisvei. We have a Kashmar Brisa, which seems to indicate that according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri, the possessions of a Nachri will have shvisa. Says the Brisa of Shimon Lozo Omer, Ha'shayil Kli ben Anochi b'Yom Tov. If one borrowed a Kli from a guy on Yom Tov, in which case, during Ben Hashmashos, it was still in the Nachri's possession, or a case as follows: V'chein Hamashal Loi L'Nachri Kli Me'erev Yom Tov. Let's say he lent a Kli to a guy on Erev Yom Tov, and it remained in the Nachri's possession during Ben Hashmashos, and he only returned it to him the next day on Yom Tov. V'echzir Loi B'Yom Tov. So it came back to Yisrael on Yom Tov, but during Ben Hashmashos, where was it? By the guy. So in both these cases, it was in the Rishus of the Nachri during Ben Hashmashos. We have another two cases. Va'kelim, ve'oitres, or these storages of payers or whatever, sheshavsa b'sechat chum, which were during Ben Hashmashos, where? Within the boundary of the city. So Rashi says, even if they're hefker. So speaking about things that are, for instance, hefker, yesh lam apayim amal choruach. So in all these cases, whether they were in the possession of a guy, or whether they were hefker, they get a tchum. They get alpayim amal choruach, 2,000 either direction. Continues the Brisa. V'nachri shehevi loy peiros mechutz l'tchum. Let's say the Nachri brought him some fruit from outside the tchum. Hareze lo yizizeh mim kaiman. Then he cannot move them out of their makom. They must remain within 4 amis, because they came from outside the tchum. Okay, so the Brisa tells us two things. Chavtzei hefker have shvisa, and Chavtzei Nachri have shvisa. Let's analyze. It's all good and well if we say, because Savar Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri, Chavtzei Nachri can have shvisa. The Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri holds that the possessions of a goy have shvisa. If that's the case, Hamani Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri. So this Brisa reflects Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri's shita. However, if you say, because Savar Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri, Chavtzei Nachri ain't can shvisa, that even according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri, there's no shvisa for the possessions of a goy. Hamani. So whose view is reflected in this Brisa? Lo Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri. It's not following his shita. V'lo Rabbanan. It's certainly not the Rabbanan, because they hold that Hefker doesn't have shvisa, and certainly not the Chayvetz of a goy, as discussed earlier. So we're stuck. Says Lo'olam Kasavar Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri, Chavtzei Nachri koinen shvisa. Actually, Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri himself will hold, yes, the possessions of a goy have shvisa, and his shita is reflected in this price. So we're changing things. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there is shvisa. Shmuel who told us that there's no shvisa for the possessions of a guy, the Amakar Rabbanan, he was strictly speaking about Shitas Rabbanan. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, there is shvisa. Now what about your question that you asked earlier? The Rabbanan Pshit. If he's following Shitas Rabbanan, then why does Shmuel need to even teach us that? It's Pashut. If they hold that Hefka doesn't have shvisa, certainly not the possessions of a guy which have interference from their owner, so why does Shmuel need to teach us that? Because there is a need. Mal the Tema, because perhaps there is room to think we should apply shvisa even to something owned by a guy, not due to its own right, rather to avoid confusion. Gzeira bound the Nachri, or to bound the Yisrael, because if we don't apply shvisa to something which is owned by a guy, one may erroneously apply that halacha even to something which is owned by Yisrael. Kamash Malon, Shmuel teaches us there's no such concern, there's no shvisa by the chayvetz of a guy. So at this point in the Gemara, whether it's a chayvetz of hefker or a chayvetz of a nachri, they go hand in hand. According to Rabbi Yehuda ben Nuri, there's shvisa in both cases. According to Rabbanan, there is none. Continues the Gemara. Rav Chibar Abin Omer Rav Yechanan, so he quoted Rav Yechanan as follows: Chavtzei nachri, koinen shvisa. Even according to the Rabbanan, the possessions of a guy have shvisa. Why? For this very reason, to avoid confusion. Gzeira bound the nachri, or to baalim the Yisrael. Continues the Gemara. Hanu dichri, there were these rams, the Asulim Avrachta, which were delivered by Nachrim on Yom Tov, to the town of Avrachta. They were brought from outside the Tchum. Now, within 4,000 Amma of this town, there was another town of Mechayza where Rava lived. And the residents of Mechayza established an Erev Tchumen, which allowed them to walk all the way to Avrachta and Brek. Sharlu Rava, Livnei Mechayza, Rava issued a heter to the residents of Mechayza, Lemizba Menaya, to go to Avrachta, purchase those animals, and bring them back home. Although generally, something which was brought from outside the Tchum must remain within 4 Amas, apparently he held something which belonged to a guy does not have Tchum. Therefore, they can go purchase those animals and bring them all the way back home to Mechayza. Amar Ravina l'Rava. So he challenged Rava, my daitach. What's your opinion? What are you thinking? The Amar Vidam Shmuel Cheftzei Nachri Ein Kohen Shvisa, because we learned the name of Shmuel that possessions of a Nachri don't acquire Shvisa. Therefore, in this case, they're not limited to 4 Amis. You can go take them all the way back to Mechayza. So that's Shmuel's opinion. Shmuel Rabbi Yechanan, Allah Rabbi Yechanan. When there's a machlokes between Shmuel and Rabbi Yechanan, we follow Rabbi Yechanan. And Rabbi Yechanan tells us that even the Cheftzei Nachri have Shvisa. V'omar Rav Chia bar Abba Rabbi Yechanan, Cheftzei Nachri koinen Shvisa. Why? Because of the Gzeira. Gzeira ba'am the Nachri, or to ba'am Yisrael. Because one may erroneously apply that halacha even to something which belongs to Yisrael. Therefore, we adopt Shvisa even by the Chafetzim of a Nachri. So in this case, these animals, which were brought from outside the Tchum into Mavrachta, they're limited to 4 Amis. So they can be transported throughout the entire city, but they can't be taken out of that city. Hadam Rava, as a result of this, Rava reverted and reissued the following statement. Lizdavnu livnei Mavrachta. The rams should be sold to the people of Mavrachta, meaning they should remain local and not be transported over to Mechayza. In accordance with Rav Yochanan, that Cheftzei Nachrim have Shvisa, so these things which were transported from outside the Tchum are now limited to 4 Amis, but they can be transported throughout the entire city of Mavrachta, which is a walled city. Why? The Kula Mavrachta the two Kedal Damas Damya, because the entire city of Mavrachta is regarded to them like merely 4 Amis. It's considered to be like one residential unit, which has a din of Dal Damas. Let's take a look at Rashi inside. So where the lines of Rashi widen, it's 8 lines above that. It says Rashi, Ka'arba Amas Damya. Kedesam Masnissen. As we learned in our Mishnah, when the Nacham took a person on Shabbos and brought him into a city, Halichuli Racheres, Oinesanu B'dir V'sar, or placed him in an animal pen, according to Gamliel, although he's outside his Tchum, he's limited to 4 Amis, he can walk freely throughout this entire enclosure. Upaskin El, and we concluded earlier, Amarav, Halacha Kram Gamliel, we follow Gamliel's Shita, Bedir, Vesar, Sfina, Vuadin, the same thing applies, Li'ashesh Machitzis. If he was delivered into a city which has walls, the entire city is regarded as one unit and can walk freely throughout the entire unit. Now this halacha can be applicable if one should land at an airport on Shabbos itself. So he was delivered into an enclosure, into a walled area, whether it's the airport or whether it's the city which has a wall or an area around it, in which case he's not limited to 4 Amas or even to 2,000 Amma. He can walk freely throughout that entire enclosure, which is regarded as one single unit. So in summary, are Cheftzei Hefke Kohen Shvisa? According to Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, yes. According to Rabbanan, no. What about the possessions of a Nachri? According to Rabbi Yehuda Kessler, yes. According to Rabbanan, we have machlekes. Shmuel holds, they're not Kohen Shvisa. Rabbi Yehuda theoretically agrees to Shmuel, they're not Kohen Shvisa by their own right. However, he says, we're concerned if we don't apply Shvisa to them, one might apply the same status to the possessions of Yisrael. Therefore, we hold that even the Chafetzim of a Nachri have Shvisa.